Yo, what's up, camp believers and high performers? Welcome to our season ending episode of the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. In true fashion, I feel like this is super special. At the beginning of season 7, I said to you, I was like, listen, I have a new kid on board. I have some new opportunities that I'm chasing. I'm not entirely sure what this season is going to look like, but from an intention standpoint, I'm going to make sure that we rock out these Mentorship Mondays. I'm going to have guests on that challenge you to show up as your authentic self. I'm going to provide you with the tactics and the rituals of high-level individuals. I promise all those things, and in a lot of ways, I felt like I was maybe 85, 90% effective. And the other 10, 15, and sometimes 20% is literally just me being human. Because I think what I had hypothesized with how my life was going to change with my new little guy, and then obviously these opportunities, I just didn't know like how much it would change. So in true fashion, as I record these intros and transitions, I got my man Augie, who is strapped to me right now in a baby carrier. So he might make an appearance here in one of these. But the thing that I really want to thank you all as we head into our clip show and our all-star episodes is really just your undying consistency to listen to the message. This is something that I have always thought of. You already know the story by now. I overthought this project for way too long until I just finally got fed up with my own limiting beliefs and excuses and decided to launch this. And now as we head into the end of season 7, episode 125, shit is crazy to say that out loud. But looking forward into what we have, I'm super excited. I'm noticing that in my season of life that I need some different systems. And so that's exactly why we're going to take a break so that I can make sure that I'm creating the systems that allow me to not only be consistent, but to truly to throw myself into these episodes even more so than I have been. So I have a team that I'm onboarding right now that's going to help me with the consistency, with the systems piece, just so that I can continue to go out, pick the brains of high-level people and to come back and be like, hey, like I got some stories to tell. So I hope you all enjoy this last clip show of season 7, our all-star episodes. I got some really fantastic ones for you. But without further ado, we're going to head into the first one after our intro of our episode 102, our Mentorship Monday. What to do when you feel like you need to quit. I feel like that's been happening a lot right now. I feel like it's in the water. So let's make sure that we ground ourselves in purpose and authenticity and continue to push forward and to give ourselves a realistic look as to why we want to quit. Let's get it. Yo, what up? You've heard how every superhero has their origin story, right? Well, welcome to the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. I am your host, Desi Abeda. I'm a high-performance mentor, registered dietitian, and family man. Tune in as we explore the high-performance habits of high performers, their origin story, and how they went from disbelief to belief in their own hero's journey, where they got to a point and shouted, "Can't believe I made it." Enjoy the episode. And then get different aspects of how we're going to, portray our message. All right. So all that being said, let's kick it into our Mentorship Monday episode for today. The big question that I have to pose for you: how do you know when it's time to call it quits? Let me ask you that one more time. And this could be a habit, a ritual, a program, a job, a business, a relationship, whatever that is in your life. Right? Because when we look at a high-level life, a high-performing life, we're going to touch on a lot of different aspects of helping you, 1, to keep your side of the street clean, 2, to make sure that you're showing up as your healthiest and your highest self into all of the things that you view as you, right? And that spans across relationships. It spans across what you do, your creative endeavors, how you think, how you feel, like all of those things. And so I want you to put that lens on real quick as I ask you the question once more. How do you know when it's time to call it quits? I've actually been having a lot of people, whether they are in some of my one-to-one or group programs or just conversations that I've been having, where I think a lot of people are just kind of going through it. I don't know if it's the moon or whatever that is. For those who are way more inclined and stuff like that, please hit me with the DM, shoot me a text, educate me. But there's something that's going on in the water right now where I am talking to a lot of people who are having some conversations about when it's time to just quit. And I wanted to introduce to you the three questions, or rather the three things that I help them to get some clarity on where they're at, because sometimes we're kind of in that season where we have to quit. We almost have to sometimes rebrand it into our mind of like, this isn't quitting, this is me putting it off till later. But listen, how often does that later happen? I'm a firm believer in this. And this is me not only talking to you as an expert and a mentor who mentors others in their high level and high performing lives in business and health and in the way that they interact with the world, all of those things. That's me talking to you here. And then also me talking to you from a place of someone who has quit on himself, someone who has ongoingly struggled with his self-love, with his mental health, has someone who has struggled in the past with suicidal ideation. Like there's just so much that comes up for me when it comes up to quitting, where I'm just like, I got to ask the tough questions. I got to give you the honest. If you're asking me for some feedback, I got to be honest with you, because most of you coming into this, if you're under the assumption that, one, you're not where you want to be, and then also at the same time, two, I can try to do this on my own. Listen, I think it's fair to say that if you could do it on your own, you would have already. And so these three questions of what I like to do, and this is like across the board. So with these three questions, what it's meant to do is to build clarity with where you're at in your season. And sometimes pausing or taking a break might be that thing. But most people who end up taking that pause or that break, or just end up sort of waiting for life to slow down, friends, life doesn't slow down. We learn how to adapt with it. Okay? Because what I'm trying to really push a lot of you to start thinking about is there are many people who get caught up in that idea that, and I would like to view it as a limiting belief, that idea and limiting belief that I'll go do this when life slows down. I'll go be the hero in my own hero's journey when life allows me to do that. And sometimes it might just take some grit and some hard conversations around where you're at so that you can get some clarity, so that you can make the best decision for you in the long run. Okay, and so let me bring you into the three questions that I like to pose when someone is just questioning themselves, because I think questioning yourself, I think it's a really normal thing. I'd be completely lying to you if I didn't say that I didn't question myself. And I'm happy to kind of sit here and say, like, I don't really question. Let's just look at this project, just this one, right? Let's just put our lenses on for the Can't Believe pod. I have had moments where I'm like, I don't know if this is it. They've been very seldom, though. And I think when those things are happening, or some of that self-doubt starting to creep in, I also need to observe what's going on in my life and what those messages are meaning for me. So as I talk to you and you're sitting there really working on your habits, your rituals, whether it's your mental health, your health journey, whether it's a business, whether it's just you going through the process of trying to be a healthy version of yourself in your relation, whatever that is, I just want you to make sure that you're present in some of the questions that I'm asking you. And so as I do that, I also want you to put on the lens of just observation. You're going to be answering these questions, but I also want you to observe some of your thoughts, your behaviors, and what you have to say to these questions. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First question, we look at significance. All right, we explore your why here. So let me ask you the question if you're someone who is thinking that you need to quit or take a break or whatever that is, okay? Because I think it's a very normal thing. So significance. Why is that? We're going to insert the goal or insert the habit or insert the ritual. Why is blank important to me? What am I willing to assure that it gets done? because that question's a little bit layered, right? And something that I like to help people get some clarity on is not only why that thing is important to them, but why it was important for them to start with. Because most people kind of come in, and let's just take health just for instance. I've been getting a lot of people reaching out that are like, "Hey, I really need some help with my health and my nutrition and some other things." And so before I even bring them into the process of creating a program that's going to work for them, I'm asking the tough questions right away because I want to help them understand what this is about to entail. Okay, so if someone comes to me and is like, "Hey, I really want to feel more comfortable in my body," or "I really want to get to a point where I'm confident. I really want to lose weight." Other people come to me with some of the same business questions. "I really want to build a business that I'm proud of. I really want to be an entrepreneur. I really want to get myself out of this 9 to 5." And I always ask them the question, "Okay, cool. That is great. Why is it important to you?" Because as you start to explore that question and start to explore what is of importance to you, you also start to uncover your value systems. A lot of people, when they're coming to me, it just might be they want to lead a better legacy for that next generation. Others might say, and this goes across the board, others might say like, "Hey, I really want to feel confident in my body because I really want to get out there and explore a relationship that means something to me. My own personal self-worth has taken a huge dive because I don't like the way that I look. I really want to build this business because I want my family to have financial freedom." Like, okay, cool. Why is that important to you? And friends, more often than not, when we explore that importance, it has to do with past conditioning. My parents never had that. So I want to make sure that I set up the next generations as I build this business. My parents or me growing up, I got told that my body was different or that it was displeasing or whatever that is. And I don't want to make sure that I make that same mistake. There's a lot of reasons why we want to do something. However, when you're in that space where you're questioning yourself, asking yourself the question, why is this important to me? And what am I willing to do to make sure that this gets completed? So I want you to take a pause just to write that down for yourself. This can be a really beautiful 5-minute journal exercise of insert that ritual or habit. Why is that important to me? The next thing that I look at is evidence. How do I know this is important to me? Is it that others see some of the progress that I'm making? Is it that I see some of the small wins? Is it that I compare myself to who I was a year or 2 years ago and I don't even recognize who that person is because I've made X amount of progress? Like, there's just so much that goes into this. And so when we look at the evidence of why you even started this habit or this ritual, this journey, this business, whatever that is, this journey, let's just look at it as a journey, okay? How do you know that your journey is important to you? What evidence have you seen in your life that it's important? Because let me tell you something. If you've spent more than at least 30 days trying to navigate something, if you have been failing and failing and failing and failing and getting down on yourself for more than a year because this thing keeps popping up, my friends, guess what? It's fucking important to you. Okay, so that's the other thing that we look at. We look at the evidence. Why is this important to you? How do you know? What sort of things have gone on in your life that you know that this is something that's important to you? And the third question, I think, is probably one of the most empowering. I like all the questions that I'm asking here, but I think this one, for me, takes the absolute cake. Okay? So this looks at, what if you didn't have it? What if
You know what? I feel like if you've been rocking with me as long as you have, you know I'm going to cut off right when it gets really good with what you should be doing, because my push for you is to head your butt back over to episode 102 and listen to the full message just to make sure that you're getting some of the deliverables that you need on your end. And if you know me well enough, it's just kind of how I just give you shit. So, all right, man, like I said in the intro, I feel like this is something that's definitely going around where
even just a lot of high performers in our programs right now are really questioning whether they have the grit available. But I think the one thing that we understand about human behavior is that if you continue to surround yourself with gritty people, if you surround yourself by 5 gritty people who are courageous, conscientious, who are risk takers, you're going to end up becoming the 6th at some point. So my friends, community, what is it? Your net worth is your network, or other way around. So let's make sure that we are continuing to take a look at the people that we surround ourselves with and also our environment. So this is great too, because this heads us into episode 105 with the all-star of all all-stars, Jessica Isaacs. I caught up with her about a year later when she had some really cool life transitions. She went from the lead performance dietitian at UCLA and then now with the Los Angeles Clippers. So I really loved our conversation, and in true fashion, she presented herself in a way that was super authentic, and a big reason why I call her a good friend. Jess, if you listen to this, I love you, my friend. Augie says what's up. Without further ado, episode 105 with Jess Isaacs. As always, I'm about to cut you off, so make sure that you head over there if you missed some key features in this conversation.
I don't want to say,
let's go.
Obviously, not all women want children, can have children, whatever. So that's not certainly our only value of legacy. But no, I think for me, if my daughter is a healthy, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all those kind of things person and a decent human being, and she's happy at the end of the day, then I don't need to go to my grave knowing anything else.
Yeah. We had some chats about the last time that we were together, and you can disclose everything that you want to in this, but I thought one of the things, just from an observation standpoint, that I thought was really, really cool is that the type of relationship that you have with her, because it seems like you do a great deal of empowering her to make the decisions that she is going to make, all while instilling almost, I don't know what, Jess, what would you call it? What I saw was hey, you're going to do what you're going to do. Here are the consequences if you do certain things. And also, I'm your safe person. We're going to talk about it regardless. I mean, is that observation even a little bit on?
Yeah. I mean, I always feel, I guess I grew up really, split households, very controlled in one, very, very controlled, very conservative, where it wasn't don't do this because or why, or if it was the extremest possible outcome, but mostly you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this. And even as I progressed, not allowed to shave my legs at 14 years old, I don't know, I mean that might
when
be
did you want to shave?
What's that? Well,
when did you want to shave?
A lot earlier. I was hairy. I have dark, long hair. And so maybe that's not a mind blow for other people, but I was ready at 11 or 12 to break the razor out, All
right.
And just
okay.
so stuff like that. And what I did was rebel. So I hid things, lied, had a very disconnected relationship with my parents. And I got into a lot of trouble. Very good at hiding a lot of it, but I got into a lot of trouble and did a lot of things. But I didn't share this with my parents, and I had a pretty rough time for a little while as a person. And so I only, as a parent, you only know what your parents did, what people, other people do, maybe what stuff you read about, but I only had that, and I knew I didn't like how that turned out. And so instead I'm trying to equip my daughter with how to make her own decisions, but give her real world, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. And I tell her when she asks questions have you done this, have you done that, sometimes it's really embarrassing to share these things. But I'm yeah, I've done this, and here's what I've learned. And so if you do this, here's what you should know from it. But I don't know how it's going to turn out. She's okay so far. I think. I don't know.
Well, I think she's doing great. Again, I only know her through your content, but having had plenty of conversations with you, my friend, you're doing a great job from just observation. Because all right, so 2 things. One, I actually had that question the other day with my wife, and I was like, all right, what if Rory wants to shave her legs at some point? Are there boundaries around this? If she wants to, do I just let her? but that also led into like, what about makeup then? There's just a lot of things. Jess, I might come to you. I hope you're open to it. I'm
For
just gonna
sure.
volunteer you.
For sure.
Oh my God. All right. So there's that. The other thing that I wanted to ask you, and this is kind of why I really wanted to start on who you are as a person, who you are as a parent, was the last time that we chatted. I always like to ask people like, hey, this is the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. It's a podcast about the hero's journey. Have you made it? And if not, what does making it look like for you? So I think we recorded in May of last year. I think, I don't know. Fast forward a year, I would love updates, and I'm sure our pod family love updates, because your episode still is at the top of all listeners. So I know as a pod family, as listeners, like we kind of want updates. So I want to know what you've been up to in the last year.
Wow. So you want updates? Okay, updates on everything.
Yes.
Yeah. All
on
right.
everything.
So this time last year, I was with UCLA, right? And then killing it. And then towards the end of last year, had an opportunity come available. Actually saw a job posting for the Los Angeles Clippers. And so now I am the full-time dietitian of the Los Angeles Clippers. And that's
let's
been
go.
insane. Absolutely insane. It has been a wild life transition, because this is exactly where I said I wanted to be 10 years ago. And I'm doing all the things that I said I wanted to do 10 years ago. And that's crazy, because now I'm like, well, what next?
Yeah.
So I'm still in the same place, still with the Clippers, which is not much further away from UCLA as far as a commute, but still a bit of commute.
Yeah.
I'm there with all the guys, and it's like I've made the transition from a collegiate to professional. Got to travel with them, got to travel for the first time private, like the perks of the job are crazy. Like it's a dream. It's a dream. And but also, like, it's also not, in some ways it's everything I thought it would be. In some ways it's way different than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, other life updates. I mean, like, I don't know. I'm at a point where, like, I constantly, like, will look at my life and be like, I have everything I want right now. Like, and I'll think about what would it look like to be like stupid wealthy? Because, like, I work with people that are stupid wealthy. I'm like, do I want that?
Stupid wealthy.
Stupid wealthy. Like, do I want that? And I mean, like, duh, sure. Like, of course. I'm not gonna turn it away. But I don't feel like I don't feel like I need that. Like, driving to, like, our little 3-bedroom house, and, like, by the beach, and have our little life out here, and getting to go to my dream job, and doing all these side projects that fulfill me, and have so many wonderful people in my community, and my kids happy and healthy. And I don't know, like, I just feel like so content right now in life.
Yeah. It would be cool to be stupid rich, but I think Biggie coined us a really, really long time ago. More money, more problems. There was a post that you had where you were on a fucking boat. Jess was on a boat, and you said the NBA hits different. You're absolutely right in that, like, it's everything that you might have thought it would have been, and some other things that you didn't think that it would be. How does it feel to say that you kind of made it in that way?
It's wild. Like, it's really surreal. And it's funny, like, I'll go around into the world where, like, nobody knows who I am or what I do. And I'm just like,
yeah, sure.
And sometimes it just feels like it's like a cool little secret I have. Cause I don't usually tell people, even when people ask what I do, like, they're going to probably have to ask a few questions before I, like, tell them, like, who I work for, like, I'm not usually volunteering it. But it feels like a cool little secret. I don't know. It's like but it's also not a secret. It's not a secret, but it, like, in the regular.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I absolutely get what you're saying. Cause, like, on one level, there's, like, the conversations that maybe you have on an airplane. And I don't know about you, but I try to avoid that at all costs. And if anyone asks me, I say I am looking for work. I've been unemployed for the last 2 years. It's been really tough, and then I put my headphones on because I don't want to. Yeah, because I don't want to go there. Because if I tell them what I do, in a lot of ways, they're going to tell me about the diet that they've been on. They're going to tell me that so and so might have an eating disorder, and just I'm there to listen to Kendrick and get some work done and then go to my next place, right? So there's that level, and then there's the varying levels of people who might know an idea of what you do, and then you get to share that. So I totally get that. Now, my bigger question for you is that as you're sitting in the opportunity of being an MBA dietitian, I have talked with a lot of our listeners and a lot of our community, and in a lot of ways, there's a lot of frustration sometimes when things aren't happening. Mm-hmm. And there's some frustration that comes with that. Jess, I would love to tap into moments for you just in your career that you were like, I don't like this, or I don't know where I'm going. I feel lost. Because I think there's value in that. Because I think sometimes a lot of people get really stuck in that place. So for you, I mean, I don't know, would you say you're at the top now?
Oh, it sure feels like it. At least, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's levels to this shit, man. But I'm not the level that I thought was the top. Maybe there's some other stuff.
Yeah.
we'll break through. But yeah, no, I mean,
I know, right?
It was not. I mean, it feels it definitely feels fast and compared to some other people's experiences. For me personally, but in other aspects of it, there was a lot of grind and a lot of failure first, not just as a dietitian, but just as a human before that. Because I started becoming a dietitian in my mid-20s when I started going back to school. And I was in school working on some other stuff, but I was going to be a nurse. I don't know. I was trying to figure it out. But there was
something in the healthcare field.
Yeah, there was I'm turning 37 this month, but these last couple of years have been the first times in my life where I've ever felt successful. I've ever felt I've had anything to be really proud of. And I haven't felt like that most of the time. So there were little glimmers of did okay here, or got a good grade, or got the job, or whatever, of where it felt okay, we're moving, but it's felt like in a journey this entire time. It's felt like a work in progress this entire time. And it's still a work in progress, but this is the first time where I've sat down and felt I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm finally in that thriving part of my life.
I got to say, it's absolutely cool. And you probably know this, and you can probably attribute this to relationships that you have in your life. And my hope is that you do have these types of relationships, whether it be family members or friends or whatever that is. But when you get to see your really good friends, loved ones succeed, there's a feeling inside of you where it's just pure joy. And for me, seeing Jess do her thing, I think is just so cool. And it's a stark reminder for all of us that although we might have moments in our life where we are definitely in that survival mode, that if we continue to take care of ourselves through it, noticing that this is a life situation when something's really hard, that it's not forever, then we can truly stand in that stillness and then start to thrive. So I think it's a really great reminder for all of us when we see our friends succeed, making sure that you give them their flowers. I think it's a special thing when you can do that. So Jess, shout out to you. Always a great conversation, my friend. We'll do this in a year again. We'll just make it a yearly thing that you and I do. But as we step into our next All-Star, shout out to you, Stacy Blunt, episode 106. There's been a lot of fear about the recession. There's been a lot of fear of how we should spend, how we should save, what the hell we should do. So I had on Stacy Blunt. He also has gone through some life changes, heading from the East Coast to the West and dropping absolute knowledge on us. And so I'm always thankful for his conversations. And if you're not following this man, please make sure that you do, because he is putting out some phenomenal pieces for us to start building some generational wealth. And I think that part is special. So without further ado, episode 106 with Stacy Blunt. Let's go.
My whole goal is to just start that conversation, and I think it has been started thus far.
So we talked a little bit about this in our first episode, but I think it's worthy of us repeating, because one of the things, Stacy, that I want to thank you for a lot of the progress that I've made from a financial perspective, because one of the gems that I got from our last conversation was having that conversation. And I think you've probably heard the saying before, most people will talk about sex before they talk about finances.
Yep.
Right. So like, that's just something that people don't talk about. You know what I mean? So like, I know that this is kind of a blanket question, but I would love for you to just try to provide some clarity. So the last time we spoke, 2019, obviously we've had 2 years that most people would love to forget. Me personally, I grew massively during it. So I'm really thankful for what it did for me. And I'm sure it's the same for you. How have people's spending habits, how have people's relationship with money, how has that changed in your eyes from like where you're sitting as you help these individuals gain wealth?
Excuse me. I really think people are more conscious of how they spend money, how they make money. Those are two super important things, right? I think before the pandemic, nobody really thought that the world was going to shut down. Nobody thought that bartenders or servers were essentially going to be called non-essential and be out of work, or for people that work at airlines or larger companies to get furloughed and essentially not be fired, but not be paid and not have any type of timeline on when they would get back to work. I think that really opened a lot of people's eyes, and it really told people that, hey, you know what? I can't depend on this job, this singular job, or this singular source of income anymore, right? Because tomorrow it can be taken away and I can be called non-essential. So I think what a lot of people did was they started to take their finances in their own hands for the better, by either starting a side hustle, which, you know, when you're stuck in the house with no job, it's the best thing to do, right? Starting up a side hustle, bringing in some additional income. And I know a lot of people that during the pandemic, they went from either being a server or a bartender or things like that to starting up an online side hustle. And now they're making tens of thousands of dollars a month, right? Going from, you know, just a job that they're making maybe minimum wage plus tips. So I think a lot of people have really come to the conclusion that, hey, I can't really depend on my normal job. I really have to take my finances into my own hands, make my own money, and actually, you know, set up a plan to succeed in the future and not just rely on, let's say, a 401k or, you know, a bi-weekly paycheck to get by.
I think that's so special because I'm seeing the same thing. I mean, I consider myself extremely lucky that I had already made the jump before it happened, because that's where it really skyrocketed for me. And be it they were good problems to have, problems started arising, and I'm like, all right, I gotta find ways to make sure that this is right. I'm wondering for you, Stacy, as you're someone who is looking, I mean, each person, each portfolio, if you will, is likely different to some extent. But as you're looking at like people's behavior, if you're looking at their habits and their rituals, what are you finding these people that you talked about that needed that side hustle or that massively grew during this time? What sort of habits, rituals, characteristics were you observing? We're like, you know what, this is why these people are being successful.
So number one is creating that plan, right? And here's the thing.
Clarity.
Exactly. When you're actually creating a plan, let's say I want to, and I'll put this in the easiest example that anyone can understand, right? Let's say I want to lose 10 pounds. What do I need to do? I need to go to the gym every day, right? How do you actually create a habit? You have to do something every day for 30 days straight, right? Once you do that, then you create a habit. If you do it for longer than 30 days, then you start to see results. But what a lot of times what happens when people either go on a diet or start, a budget or start working on their finances is they'll do it for, maybe a couple weeks, but then they'll kind of lay off it a little bit. That. Exactly. Yeah. Lay off of it a little bit. But like I said, if you're not doing something for 30 days straight, you're not making the habit. And if you're not extending that on for, 60 days, 90 days and actually seeing the results, then it's never going to work for you. And if you keep going back to step one, I think that's, one of the biggest problems and why people really don't like to talk about finances is because it's hard, right? So what I've seen with the successful people is they make it a plan to sit down day in, day out, even if it's for 5 minutes, right? To create that plan. Let's say, okay, what did I spend today? What did I make today? Do I have any bills coming up?
That's like the basic thing. You can do that, 5 minutes before you go to sleep.
And everyone has that. Let's get real.
Exactly.
Everyone has
exactly.
that.
Everybody has that 5 minutes. You can do it when you're on the toilet. Just everybody has a phone, right?
Yeah.
Anything, right?
Yeah.
So what I've seen is the most successful people, they make an intentional effort to actually set aside time day in, day out to look at their finances. Like I said, their expenses, their income, what bills they have coming up, some of the investments, how they're doing. But they're not trading every day, right? They're not, spending money every day or deliberately going out of the way to, find ways to, save $3 here or $5 there. They're living their normal life as they would, and they're determining how they can actually optimize that by, determining what's coming in, what's coming out, and how to plan for the future in terms of an investment perspective.
Man, I love that. I mean, I didn't even tell you what I wanted out of this, and you already dove into like what you could do in the first 5 minutes of anything. So I love this, bro. I mean, Stacy, for you, like we didn't really get to dive in the last time. Right now, as we rebranded and changed the messaging, one of the things that has been really, really part of my passion work is telling people's heroes journeys, having someone on and talking a bit more about like what brought them to where they are. I mean, for you, Stacy, like what's been the trajectory for you where you started to go into finances? Because I know for me, growing up in a Latino home, there were two things that we didn't really talk about. One was feelings or conflict, and the other one was finances. Like those are the two things that as brown people, like we just don't talk about, right?
Very
so like
true.
Coming from like your perspective, like what brought you to where you are? I mean, something had to happen. I'm super interested.
So I agree with everything you said, right? Things like that aren't talked about enough. And I think the flip that switched for me was the fact that I grew up, to humble beginnings. We really didn't have a lot of money, right? We really couldn't do anything we wanted. I had to move around a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And that kind of weighs on you when you're a kid. And you kind of start to ask some questions like, hey, like, why can't I do this? Or, why aren't we allowed to, go these places, right? And it really came down to, hey, you know what? Times are hard. We don't have a lot of money, even though we're, we may be in a nice neighborhood, but, times are really, really hard. So from that point on, I said, hey, you know what? How do you make money? Just,
start asking questions,
being a naive kid, right? Just asking the basic question. Yeah. How do you make money? Right. And I think this is probably one of the craziest things. One of my first jobs or side hustles, right, was two things. I would spend the summers at my grandma's house, right? Be there all day with my friends. And my two first side hustles were mowing grass and shoveling snow in the wintertime, right? During winter break, whatever. And I've told people this story, but I think this is like the real spark, right? So if I wanted to either go out and cut somebody's grass or shovel their driveway, right? I can get paid, let's say $10-15, but I could only do maybe 2 to 3 in a day, right? So, when you're a young kid, that's, decent money. You can make maybe $30-40.
That's great.
Sometimes more, but I'm going to be dead tired at the end of the day. I have to pay for the gas for the lawnmower, or I have to buy the shovels for the snow, right? But here's what I did when I was a kid. I had 2 lawnmowers and I had 2 shovels. And what I did was, instead of actually going out and doing the work, I said to my friends, hey, I'll pay each and every one of you guys $5.
I love this.
And all you have to do is show up, cut the grass. And because I have 2 either shovels or 2 lawnmowers, we can get it done in literally 20 minutes and we can go on to the next one. Here's what I'll do. I'll go out and I'll set each and every one of the appointments. So all my job was to take my bike.
Wait, hold on. How old are you here?
Honestly, I was young. I was probably maybe like 9, 10 at the time.
What the fuck? All right, keep going.
So what I did was I hopped on my bike, and throughout my grandma's neighborhood, there were a lot of elderly people, so they actually couldn't go out and cut their grass, right? So I would see, somebody that needs their yard cut or their driveway shoveled, and I would say, hey, you know what? We charge $20. We can get you in and out in, 20, 30 minutes. What do you say? They said yes. Then I would tell my buddies, here you go. I would keep going down the street. And that process of not actually working for money But being able to, and at the time, I really didn't know what I was doing. I just thought that, hey, you know what? I have two buddies. I'm going to pay them $5 a piece, right? But I get to keep $10, and I do none of the work besides to actually go out and, create the organization.
Young CEO.
Exactly. And if I did this myself, right, I could make, let's say, $30-$40 in a day, right? But if I have somebody else do the work, I can make the equivalent amount of money in a couple of hours, and I do zero work, physical labor, right? So I think that was when it first sparked for me, and I was like, wait, this happens all the time in everybody's normal day-to-day lives, right? Somebody came up with the idea to start a business, and he hired other people because it's easier for him. He has to do less work, and he gets the lion's share of the revenue, right? And I think that's what really kind of opened my eyes and made me start to think about how do businesses actually work. And I think that was the spark for me.
I'm telling you, you continue to surround yourself with people who know more than you. That stuff is going to start to brush off. Big shout out to Stacy once again. He's someone that we'll definitely continue to have back on because, as I said at the beginning of our conversation, make sure that you head back to 106, obviously, to hear the full conversation. But what I had said to him was like, yo, you're the first person that helped me to understand that I can actually start to develop a healthy relationship with money and wealth. Because in my brain, just in my past conditioning, I always thought of money as something that you can always lose, which I now understand that, yes, while that might be the case, money is in fact energy. So, how can you maximize your potential by continuing to show up? And that's exactly what I've thrown myself into. And that's largely to do with the conversations that I've had with Stacy. So Stacy, shout out to you, bro. Thank you so much. All right. So our fourth all-star, if you will, is going to be one of our Mentorship Monday episodes. So episode 107, The Rule of Thirds. Alexi Papas had gone on the Rich Roll podcast, and it was a TikTok video that I had to share because it helps you to conceptualize what it means to actually make progress and what it means to actually show up to the given thing that you're working on. So episode 107, as always, if you want to hear the full episode, make sure that you head over there, give it some love, take a screenshot, tag us at Ametapod and at Desi Abeda. Y'all, we're trying to get up to these 10K plays. As I'm recording this right now, we're at like almost 9K. So Augie's getting fussy, so he wants to hear 107. Let's go. And beyond. And one of the things this last week, so I did my first Red Bull trip up in LA, and there were a lot of things that happened. We got to surf one day, we got to go to the US Surf Open. So there was a lot of things that I was experiencing that I was like, damn, I'm so happy that I did all this work prior. Because at the time, when you're etching away at a goal or etching away at something that's really important for you, I think it's a really normal experience to get impatient, to ask the question, like, when is this going to happen for me? And it's something that I've been having a lot of conversations with a lot of our higher performers in our programs about just that. And one of the things that really came up for me this last week, not only getting to collaborate with other really high level individuals, getting to build ideas, getting to make sure that we're honing it back in on the message and the habits. One thing that came up for me was a lot of gratitude. I shared this with a friend the other day, and it's something that I think is really magical, and it's going to build on what I really wanted to tackle from the standpoint of our Mentorship Monday message today. So, rewind maybe, I want to say like 6 to 8 years ago. And this is right before my daughter came on the scene. I saw this the other day too. Like when you're in your 20s, you're just like trying to figure out, like you're trying to figure out what your place is. You're trying to figure out what you want to do, what your life focus is. You're just in a lot of ways, like you're kind of a waste of space because you're just sat there worrying about what you should be doing. So I saw that quote the other day, and I had a really good laugh because around that time, about maybe 6, 7, maybe even 8 years ago, I was in LA. I was on the beach, and I was like, you know what? Like I'm not where I want to be. Like I just finished school. I just got kicked out of Canada. Like there's a lot that was going on in my life where I was like, man, I'm completely lost. And I remember sitting on the beach in Santa Monica, that time ago, and I picked up a shell and I was like, all right, this is going to be my memento. Like this is this right here, this moment right here means that like I'm going to make sure that I figure this out. I'm going to figure out my life. I'm going to figure out what it is to be passionate about what I'm doing. I don't know what that is, but this memento right here is going to mean that at some point I'm going to make it back to LA, like living or whatever. Like I'm going to do that. And I remember I brought it to a brunch. Shout out to Matt and Elmira. I remember I brought this to a lunch, and I was like, they were like, "Hey, how's your trip been?" And I was like, you know what? Like it's been really amazing. I got this off the beach, and it's going to be a reminder to myself that I'm going to make it back here. Like I'm going to do that. And I remember showing it to them, and I don't know if they remember this. So y'all, if you're listening to this, please shoot me a text and validate this experience. I remember I put it on the table, and they both kind of just looked at me like, all right, I love Des, but he's fucking crazy. And I remember that moment, like I hadn't thought about that moment at all. And I found myself in my trip this last week, like, because I'm someone who really loves to be outside. I found myself just really walking the beach and just really laughing at that moment and having a lot of gratitude for the process up to this point, because it was kind of like a ripple in time in a lot of ways of like, hey, you might not need to know like what is going to happen, but falling in love with the process is really going to help you to understand that when you're chasing something really important to you, at first it might not be loving you back in the way that you want it to, but if you truly fall in love with that process, it's going to love you back, and that relationship is reciprocal, right? And so I tell you this story because I came across a piece of content from an Olympic athlete who ended up representing Greece. So I think she's Greek and American. Her name's Alexi Papas. She jumped on the Rich Roll podcast, and she mentioned something and a concept that was eerily reminiscent of the 80-20 guideline that I constantly talk to you all about. And one of the things that she came up with from one of her coach, again, when you get to work with high level athletes, you're going to also, those high level athletes are also going to get opportunities to work with high level mentors who have either been in that space, understand the science, understand the psychology. I mean, that's a huge reason why I've brought what I've learned in my process into guiding other high level individuals, because as a mentor myself, I'm also understanding that I don't need to know everything. I don't need to be perfect, but I'm gleaning on my expertise and I'm gleaning on my experiences to help individuals get to a point where they're honoring their own hero's journey. And in Alexi's podcast with Rich Roll, she mentioned this rule of thirds. And without me trying to explain a little bit more, I'm actually just going to play the clip for you and then talk to you about ways of building systems to honor this. Okay, so without further ado, this is Alexi Papas on Rich Roll's podcast.
So my Olympic coach told me after a particularly challenging workout where I could not hit my splits before going to the Rio Olympics that was okay. It was the rule of thirds. And he was an Olympian, so I was, I always soaked in everything he said. And I was like, what's the rule of thirds? And he said, when you're chasing a dream or doing anything hard, you're meant to feel good a third of the time.
I love this.
Okay, a third of the time, and crappy a third of the time. And if the ratio is roughly in that range, then you're doing fine. So today was the crappy day along your dream chasing.
Right.
And if the ratio is off, like you feel too good all the time or too bad, then you've got to look at if you're fatiguing or not trying hard enough or pushing yourself. So.
Okay. So there's a lot to unpack when we're talking about the message that she just provided. There's a lot of things that I really love about it because, like I said, it's eerily reminiscent of the 80-20 guideline where 80% of the time you're really throwing yourself and doing hard things. You're really throwing yourself in the process and the objective. And the other 20% is just life being life, is just you being an imperfect human. And if you can stay in that guideline, it's really going to help you to make that 1% progress each and every day, each and every week, each and every month and beyond. What I really love about this rule of thirds is that obviously it's breaking up your progress or your process into rules of thirds. So on one end of the third, you're feeling really good about what you're doing. And let's also make sure that we have a conversation about like how this guideline, how this rule rather can be implemented into your life. So you can implement this in your health journey, you can implement this. If you're starting up a side gig, and if you're listening to this podcast, you are someone who is trying to hone in on your habits in a way where you can honor your health, you can honor your fulfillment. And we can't not talk about what that means from the standpoint of what you want to provide for the world, whether that is a side gig, whether that is turning your side gig into a main gig, or just merely just honoring your mental health in a way where you can submit a legacy that you're really proud of. Okay. And so if you're listening to this podcast, this rule of thirds is something that I think could be really, really advantageous for you in reference to falling in love with said process. Okay. So let's go ahead and refocus in on what we have here. So in our rule of thirds, we got a third where you're going to feel good about what you're doing. You're going to have a day where everything is clicking. You're feeling really great. You're having great communication. You're making great progress on that side gig, or even just like you're honing in on your habits and you're really proud about that process. The other third is like, it's a blah day. It's an okay day. All right. You're kind of noticing this isn't great, but this isn't bad. Like if anything, this is maintenance. And if you've ever worked with me, you understand that I am likely going to be talking to you about the value of maintenance, because maintenance sometimes is progress. Okay. I was literally just having a conversation with one of our high level and high performing individuals in our program the other day. And so he's kind of at this like 90-day point, and he's talking to me. He's like, dude, I had an off week, man. I only hit my step goal of 7,000. Like, I know like sleep hasn't been great, but I'm really working on making sure that I'm prioritizing a sleep time and a wake time. I'm feeling much more productive with that. And then from a strength training perspective, like, man, I really wanted to hit 3 to 4 days, but I ended up hitting like almost 2. But one of the other things was like, hey, I really want to give into important relationships. I just started seeing someone and it feels really great. I just kind of had an off week, and I kind of laughed and I was like, yo, can I just repeat back to you what you just said to me? Like, your off week, your C+ effort compared to who you were on day one is like A+++ effort. Like, can we just acknowledge that in the short 90 days that you've been in this process? And we had a good laugh together, because sometimes when we level up, when we're trying to get that 1% better, you're going to have those maintenance days. And to me, like, that's perfectly okay. Right. And the other third that we're talking about here is those crappy days. Like, you acknowledge, like, you know what? I'm not feeling great. It doesn't feel great to be where I'm at. Like, this sucks. You're just trying to acknowledge that there are ratios and there's a process. And I think what Alexia talked about there, which is even more beneficial, is that there needs to be a balance of the ratios. Because if you're too good, then you might not be challenging yourself enough, right? Because we always want to make sure that we have a gentle balance between being challenged and then being able to navigate wins. Okay. And then the other third, if you're feeling okay, we need to actually ask you, like, hey, are you committed to this goal? Are you committed to this really hard thing? Because there's a difference between absolute commitment and things that you're interested in. I actually just heard this from Alexi too, and I'm actually going to make this another podcast episode, because I think it's really revolutionary in the way that we navigate things that we're doing or things that we want to do. But we do need to ask ourselves, like, if you're feeling okay more often than not, like, are you committed to this really hard thing, or are you just merely interested in it? Because if you're interested in it, then you're likely going to find ways to navigate away from it. You're going to disconnect from that. And the other third, obviously, is crappy. So if you're feeling too crappy, then the goal itself might be too hard. You might not have the systems in order to get to a point where you're balancing that. So in true form, as your high performance mentor, or someone who's really trying to help you with the skills, the rituals, and the habits and the embodiment of someone who is a high level individual, I'm going to give you systems today that are going to help you to develop that ratio. So let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to do that together.
Listen, I was not lying to you when I said I was going to cut off when things started to get good. I mean, I'm trying to help you to be consistent. I'm going to stay consistent on my end as a listener to jokingly piss you off. So make sure that you head back over to episode 107, listen to the full one. I really, really enjoyed the tidbit from Lexi Papas, and I think listening to that full episode would be incredibly advantageous for you, even if you're not an elite level athlete. In all of our lives, we are working to produce, we are looking to compete, we are looking to do some special things. So you don't have to be an elite level athlete to understand the tactics of what helps them to be successful, because that's the whole reason why I started this podcast. I wanted you to understand
that the information, the tactics are now readily available. So what do you want to do with this? How can I help you to perform at a high level in your life? So heading into episode 118, I mean, all of these are my favorite, but this one's really, really special because of what I know about the person. So she was one of the first conversations that I had, having just started at Red Bull, having just started at the Athlete Performance Center, just being able to collaborate with such an amazing amount of phenomenal people. And the conversation I had with her was life-changing, and it continues to be opportunities for me to just look inward. It's amazing to me that our Red Bull athletes get access to her. I think it's just really cool. So without further ado, Irene Oyang was able to drop some absolute knowledge on us and was able to tap into something very vulnerable for her. And if she's a mental performance specialist that is helping elite level individuals, and she too has gone through her bouts and continues to work on her imposter syndrome, you can do the same. So episode 118 with Irene Oyang. Hope you enjoy. In my top left corner, there's like a blue jar. It says Desi's Dreams in there. Yeah.
Easy.
I started adding to that like 5-6 years ago. I honestly haven't broke it open. I think it's a good time to do that. Mm-hmm. But that being said, Irene, it's okay if you had a Red Bull on your vision board. I do too, bro. It's cool.
I definitely journaled about it. I don't think I've created a vision board.
I love that.
But yeah, I think, once you set your sights on like, this is my North Star, like somehow all your actions align and opportunities align. And whether you call that like manifestation, or maybe it's just your mind is now primed to like look for opportunities that are aligned with that. Like, have you ever noticed when you think about when you're car shopping and you're like thinking about buying a certain car and you're like, you've been researching it online, all of a sudden you see it everywhere on the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're primed
what is it? What Irene, what is that called? It's not object permanence. What the hell is it called? I should probably know this. I did a damn podcast about it, but you're absolutely.
I study psychology, but I don't remember.
Yeah, no, so for our listeners out there, I think it was like episode like 70 or something. I'll go back to it. I literally did it as like one of our Mentorship Monday episodes. Yeah, this is what you get when you have a host who has ADHD. I'm doing the best I can, people. Okay. Yeah, no, I see that all the time. And it's so funny to hear you say whether that's manifestation or whatever that is. I find a lot of solace in the idea that I can create opportunities for myself and cue my environment to try to seek those opportunities. And maybe I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, because I had a very similar feeling going out of college. I mean, as a dietitian, for the most part, especially back in 2012, I'm kind of dating myself right now. When I graduated, it's mostly a clinical job. Like, you're going out and you're doing tube feeds, like that's what it is. And I remember talking to, when I got into my internship and took my test, I remember talking to one of our advisors, and I had said, she's like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, well, like, thank you so much for the internship and the credential, but I don't want to do any of this. Like, I want to own my own business. I want to do some like really cool things. And like, same thing. I was like, okay, like, good luck. I'll see you in the clinic. And I just have so much happiness that I never went back to the clinic, because I was like, I honestly didn't really know what it was going to look like, but I also knew that this wasn't it. And I love to hear you say that, just having that feeling of this is my North Star. Yours was way more specific, which makes the story 5,000 times better.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I was never a very academically focused person. Like, when I remember when I was growing up, like growing up in Taiwan, Asian parents, like, I got in so much trouble for my report cards because all of like, I have like subpart.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, are you supposed to be a doctor right now?
It's subpar grades, like, and then on top of that, every single teacher would write in the comment section of my report card, like, easily distracted. And so to my parents, like, I was like, that was like end of the world. So yeah, it was funny like that. I found something that I was so deeply passionate about that I, like, not only went to grad school, I voluntarily went to grad school.
Dude, yes.
Yeah,
like
my parents were really
at this point, you're volunteering to go.
No, they were like pushing me because like my whole family was like, we come from, everybody in my family has doctorate degree, like master's degree, everything. And so there's almost this expectation for us to go. And so at the time, it was almost like, until I discovered sports tech, I was almost like, all right, like, what program?
Guess I got to put on this white coat.
Because my family,
yeah.
Digging myself into bigger debt constantly.
I know, right? God.
And then so it was just crazy that I found something I was so passionate about. Like, I was like, I want to go to grad school for this.
I love it. Well, like, fast forward to Irene, like now, you and I think had the same, guttural laugh when we were talking about the role of imposter syndrome and like anything that we're doing. Cause I think as I was there, that was honestly the first time that I was going to work with any of our athletes or talent or dancers. So I had said to you, I was like, hey, like I feel the same way right now, but I know for me, what I'm learning about myself is if I'm really uncomfortable, it's probably the best thing for me. So shut the fuck up and let's go. So like, that's kind of like the inner dialogue that happens for me. I don't know, for you with where you're at, do you have moments of imposter syndrome? Do you have moments of self-doubt? I mean,
absolutely.
I would assume, yeah, that's why you and I probably connect.
Oh, absolutely. It was so deep. The imposter syndrome was so real when I first joined Red Bull, because all of a sudden I was thrust into this world that I thought would happen maybe 5-10 years down the road. And then here I was having to take a quantum leap. Be here, like, in a sense, like, cause I was like, wow, like I thought this was something that would happen later in my career when I was more like, way further down the road, when I was like really established, like all of those things. And then all of a sudden I was thrust into like this world. And it, like, don't get me wrong, I'm so excited. However, I am surrounded by the best of the best, with all the other,
right? Yeah.
Like physical therapists, dietitians, strength coaches, everybody, and even the best of the best athletes in the world. Like, these guys don't, like, that's why they're Red Bull. There's something about them,
Yeah.
That just pushes boundaries. So when I came in, there was like a part of me that was literally just like festering in my own imposter syndrome.
Yeah. You're just like stewing. You're just having internal conversations with yourself and no one knows, but they're not good.
No. And it was constant. And sometimes it's getting better now. I will say it's getting a lot better, but at first it was so constant, and it was really, like, to be honest, like, it was really challenging. Like, I was like arriving at this huge dream of mine, and I felt like shit.
Yeah.
I was like, here is your dream that you've been working for the past like years, multiple. And it's literally been like gift wrapped, handed to you. You're like, here you go. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here feeling like shit.
I don't know if I'm going to cry or throw up.
Feeling so undeserving of it. So yeah, it was definitely really challenging. So, but one thing I think in trying to work through this, I've had to realize, like, I had to like really kind of start identifying it as my imposter syndrome voice. Like, oh, there it is again, right? Like, here's my imposter syndrome voice coming in, telling me all the things where I'm like lacking and not doing enough of, and blah, blah, blah. And all these other people are so much more accomplished. And it just all of that little nagging comments. And I had to really then just like listen to it and identify and be like, okay, this is what that sounds like.
Yeah.
And then I also had to, I had to understand, like, because I think everything to some extent serves a purpose, right? Like if your mind didn't think it was helpful, it wouldn't utilize it. It's like, so I'm like, what purpose is my imposter syndrome like helping me with? Like in what ways is it serving me, maybe that I'm not conscious of? And so I think I still am to some extent hanging on to the imposter syndrome because, you know, when you're an imposter, you work that much harder. Like, because you constantly feel like you're playing a game of catch up and you're like, I have to do more. I have to do more. And so like, it actually really like in some ways, like, yes, it can feel like shit, but also if you utilize it, it can also like tremendously expedite your growth, right? Because you always feel like you have to be playing catch up with that. So I think it has, so my imposter served me in a way the first couple months at Red Bull to really, really, really just like put myself in a high pressure cooker situation and just like grow tremendously. Like the amount that I have learned in the past few months, just, you know, is now that I reflect back on it, I'm just like, holy hell. Like,
I'm doing this.
I have learned so much in such a short time span. And if I had come in complacent and be like, you know, super complacent with like my abilities and my knowledge and my skills and all those things, like, I don't think I would have put myself in the high pressure cooker situation.
Yeah. So it's so interesting to hear you say that this is something that is a constant thing for you. And I think one thing, Irene, that gets brought up, you know, one of my favorite podcasters and mental like performance teachers is Jim Quick. So I started this podcast largely because of the Quick Brain podcast. Like I just felt like his delivery and what he was teaching was really right in line with things that I was already thinking about, seeing, having worked with athletes and other mental performance professionals. Like it was just a lot of what I'm seeing. And one of the things that he had said, and you had sort of said it in your own words, one of the things that really spoke to me was if you're going to fight for your limitations, please believe that you're going to keep them. And I remember hearing that and I was like, wow, like a lot of our limiting beliefs really dictate how we operate in the world. And that's just not professionally, that's just overall. And one of the things that I came to a while ago was like, you know what? There are things about me that I don't enjoy, but let me go ahead and try to hijack some of the strengths in that habit or that ritual. And let me see where this goes. And so I, you know, you and I are joking about like the object of like ADHD and too distractible. I've got to a point now where I've hijacked it to an extent where I know where I play and I know where I don't. I need opportunities just like this to collaborate with people, to be on the go, to create deadlines and projects for myself and really have me be in a team setting, but at the same time, like I'm my own competition. Like that was me sort of hijacking that. And I think one thing that I heard you say right there that I thought was really important for our listeners to understand is if you view something as a limitation and you're willing to fight for it, chances are you're probably going to keep it unless you start to observe it. And I think that's a nice transition, Irene, into one really big question that I had for you. So like you mentioned this, you're working with a lot of high level people. You're working with some crazy freak athletes. As you're observing them, what are some of the tendencies or consistencies that you see within them? Now, this can be their habits, this can be their mental fortitude, but whatever that is, like what's consistent when you look at these like really high performing individuals?
That's so tough because they are all like, when I look at every single one of them, I actually see a lot more differences than I do similarities. But I guess like if I'm trying to kind of find like a common thread, with all of them.
What are the commonalities? Because you're right, they're coming. I mean, anyone who's there has such a diverse background, which is so cool, right? But like commonalities, like what are you seeing?
Commonalities, I think just like, this is going to take me a second to like put into words, because I think it's really hard to like get to the core of it.
No, Irene, we got time.
You know, like you could give the easy answers like, oh, like discipline, whatever. Like, yeah, like they're all discipline.
Of course, yeah. Like the bare minimum is discipline and intentionality. Like, I don't know what else. Okay, done. I'm seeing something, but you're spending way more time with them. So I'm kind of interested in what you're seeing versus like what I'm seeing.
Okay. I want to hear what you're seeing. As this is,
you just want to cherry pick my answer. I'm a huge lover and believer in the idea of truly falling in love with the process and knowing that relationship is reciprocal. What I'm seeing is that there's a sheer love for that given sport, and at the same time, a sheer it's connected, a sheer love and an intense amount of fear of like where they have to go to. Like you talked about the pressure. There's like a really large love-hate relationship with it, but there's a comfort in being present throughout it, which I think is so special to observe.
Definitely. Yeah. Like the love is for sure there. You feel it, like you see it like in them, like it just like radiates from every athlete, right? Like that is how dedicated they are. They love that so much that they're willing to accept like all the risks that come with their sport. And like, you know, Red Bull sponsors a lot of really extreme, like high, like action sports.
Yeah. So
the risks are really high. And then the rewards on the other end of that are also really high. I think maybe I totally agree with what you said. And maybe another piece I want to add to that is like this piece of like self-expression of their potential.
Oh,
it's like
yes. Wow. Yes.
Are hitting optimal performance. It is the truest form of self-expression for all of them.
Yeah.
It's just an expression of who they are. It's like not more, not less. Like it's just who they are, like right there in that instant.
It's their art, right?
Yeah. It's their art. And it's like, I think like in this society, we're always striving to be more than who we are. But really what like optimal performance is being exactly who you are.
Wow. That last part's going to stay with me for quite some time. And I hope it stays with you. Because what we're asking you to do on this podcast, yes, we're asking you to level up in a lot of ways, but the leveling up is actually inside of you. I just got done talking with one of our high performers in our High Performers Elite programs, letting her know that like, hey, you're about to go compete at a high level here. All the preparation has been done. Now all you have to do is center yourself inside of a visualization of seeing yourself go through the process. Seeing yourself get to a point where at the end of the day, you feel comfortable with the way that you were able to show up. And I think we can all take that. So happy season 7, friends. I am so excited for what is in store for season 8. Like I said, I am seeing with where I am in my pace of life that I need some systems. Augie thinks so too. So I'm going to go feed him as we close to season 7. So I am so thankful for you all. Excited for what's in store. Let's get it.